With black pepper tofu, you want to punch flavor into it, and that's where you get that really, not just succulent tofu, but you know, a good bit of that marinade all the way through. And then black pepper at different stages to give us that great sort of base spice. It's veganuary, it's cold, and this vegan dish will certainly warm you up. Welcome back to Wok Wednesdays. I'm Jeremy Pang from School of Wok in Covent Garden. Let's get wokking. We're going to start with some garlic, ginger, and spring onion, your classic Cantonese base ingredients. Same with the spring onion, roughly chopped. So I've got some red onion and 2 different colored peppers here. I'm going to cut my onion and the peppers. I'm going to take a quarter red pepper and a quarter green just because I want a bit of a variation of color in a similar sort of 1 to 2 centimeter cubed. They're going to join my wok clock of ingredients here. And now onto the tofu. Now a lot of people or recipes will say press your tofu, try and squeeze the water out. For me, tofu, how you buy it is the texture that you want it. Now, this is a firm, fresh tofu. And as I say, I'm gonna go for sort of cubes. All I've done is dried it, pat it dry, rather than pressed the tofu. I'm gonna marinate this tofu with 1.5 tablespoons of vegetarian stir-fry sauce. It's basically like a mushroom version of oyster sauce. So I'm gonna layer the black pepper flavor into this because I want this to be really nice and black peppery. And then I'll use more black pepper later on in the sauce. A good drizzle of sesame oil. Now with tofu, you know, we've got these lovely cubes here, so you try not to break it up, and if it's easier, just sort of go through it with a spoon, or just gently fold through with your fingertips. Once your cubes of tofu are well covered, give your hands a clean. I've got some corn flour here. Now, you could just stir fry your tofu like this without any corn flour at all, but I'm going for sort of a crispy tofu before I then wrap it into the stir fry sauce. So I'm gonna use a fair amount of corn flour for this. Let's start with 3 or 4 heaped spoons of corn flour, and then just run your fingers through that again once more. A good coating of the corn flour around each piece, but you should be able to see this sort of brown marinade around the tofu as well. So I'm going to use the rest of this vegetarian stir-fry sauce, so about 1/2 tablespoon. And this is to start to make up my sauce, my stir-fry sauce. About 1 tablespoon of light soy. There's already a lot of flavor in the marinade itself, and tofu takes in a lot of flavor. So we need to make this more watery or more liquidy. So I've got some Shaoxing rice wine that will help that out. But as I say, it's a black pepper tofu. So let's go for another 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I've got a drizzle of dark soy, and that will change the color of that sauce and really deepen it. About 1/2 teaspoon or a good pinch of sugar. Let's get ready to wok. So I'm gonna really sort of essentially deep fry the tofu, not in too much oil, so it's kind of like a blanching process. So I'm just gonna make sure there's enough oil to keep wrapping the tofu round to get it nice and crispy. Now, usually I'd say use some chopsticks or something wooden to test, but tofu is great for it. So as soon as that starts to fizz up, then we'll know that that oil is definitely hot enough. So just go carefully with your tofu. Every step of the way, you don't want it to stick together. You want your tofu pieces to stay nice and separate. I quite like a spatula for this rather than a ladle, because it just means that you can get underneath the tofu and sort of fold that around the oil. Moving it around with my spatula every sort of 1 to 2 minutes creates these sort of knobbly bits of corn flour and that marinade that add to the texture when we finish off the black pepper tofu in a second. What you want to do is you want to cook it to this point that sort of half batter is protecting those cubes of tofu. They'll be crispy, it'll look golden brown. At this point, I'd recommend getting one of your School of Wok spiders and then just pouring that into a heat-proof bowl over the spider. Of course, if you don't have a School of Wok spider, you can use a sieve. So I've still got a small bit of oil in my wok from the frying. So I'm going to start at 12 o'clock with my wok clock. And I'm actually going to go ginger, garlic, spring onion, because I know I've got a huge amount of heat in here straight off the bat. We've got flavour from this oil, so I'm just going to use a little bit of that hot oil from here. Push that to the back, and then my onions and my peppers can come in. Fold that through a couple of times. And you want to get some blistering on your peppers and your onions. So this high heat is good, but that constant movement is important. Now, time, build up heat, add your tofu in, and then once your wok is smoking hot all the way around, that is when you're going to pour your sauce in. Sauce in. Hold your mouth, that black pepper's going to hit you. Fold in from the bottom, couple of tosses through. And all that tofu and the corn flour around it would have picked up that sauce pretty quickly if your wok is hot enough. So, same again with my vegetable stock. I'm going to go wait for it to get smoking hot and then pour some around the edge of the wok. Then let it come to boil. Once it's vigorously boiling, give it a wok toss. And you'll see or notice that tofu starting to soften up again around the edges, but keeping the cubes of tofu in shape. I'm just going to add a final pinch of black pepper right at the end so that you really get that hit immediately. And I'm just going to darken this sauce a little with a bit more dark soy. That, to me, is done. So here's my restaurant-style black pepper tofu. So try the tofu, but I also want some of the spring onion and all those base ingredients. That is delicious. I've met a lot of people in my life who say they don't like tofu, but if you layer the flavors right and build upon those flavors throughout the stir fry, it can taste absolutely delicious, and it's all about texture too. So with that, if you have struggled with tofu, let us know in the comments below what you have struggled with and why you think you might not have cooked tofu the right way.